Welcome on into Sports Memo Today, where you're getting to know your experts a little bit better while getting that actionable info you know and love all along the way. We got the usual Thursday crew with me. I got Matt Josephs and Eric Pauly, and we're talking football because who wants to talk about baseball? I don't even actually think there was a World Series game last night. At least I know the Phillies batters didn't know there was a World Series last night, but that's not here nor there. We're going to be talking some NFL. We're going to be talking some college football. And let's start off with a guy who is running hot in both of them. We got Matt Josephs joining the show here. MJ, not great for us last night. Not great at all, but we're going to wash the stank off. The Phils are wearing the powder blues tonight. We're going to get some college football winners, going to get some NFL winners. And if all goes bad, we'll just turn over and watch the Eagles trounce the Texans, right?
Exactly, yeah. Eagles are going to win tonight. That's at least what we want. Phillies win would be also very nice, but let our undefeated football team do a lot of the talking for the city.
That's the hope. And if you hate Philadelphia and you hate Houston, I don't know what's going to be on your TV set tonight because there's nowhere to hide from either of the cities tonight with the NFL action going on and, of course, the World Series as well. So, Matt, let's start with one of those games that's going tonight. In the NFL, it's the Houston Texans taking on the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles are laying a number in this one, 13.5. You're not messing around with the spread. You actually have a prop and an under that I'm intrigued to hear what you're looking at with this Jalen Hurts rushing prop.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts under rushing is where I'm going here. And we've already seen kind of a juice move, at least, towards the under on this number. And the reason why is simple. 4 of his last 5, he's gone under 42.5 yards rushing. And you look at the previous quarterbacks, only Justin Fields has gone over this number against the Houston Texans. And that's because he's the whole Chicago Bears offense. I don't imagine him to be under pressure a lot tonight. I don't imagine that things are going to happen for Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to have some time. And I think this is going to be a workmanlike victory in terms of a lot of handoffs to Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, some passes. I just feel like the Eagles don't need Jalen Hurts' legs to win this game. It's a short week. They don't want him taking extra hits and things like that. Now, look, if the game's close throughout, then this is going to be bad. But I have a feeling we might see Gardner Minshew in the fourth quarter. And I think that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do a ton with his legs tonight. So give me under 42.5 rushing yards for the Eagles quarterback.
Looking at the under and a guy who typically people think is a rushing stalwart. Matt's laying out the numbers right there. Hasn't really been the case the last few weeks. Showing off the arm strength, especially with the 4-touchdown effort last week. So let's get into the Service Academy matchup that everybody is always amped up for because Saturday, you wake up, turn on your set at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, and all we do is just cash unders every which way whenever the Service Academies are matching up. But Matt's saying, I'm not going to make it that easy for my free play. You have a play in this Air Force and Army game that has nothing to do with an under. I'm intrigued, Matt. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, the under's certainly in play here, and I'll definitely be looking at the first quarter unders, which I like to play in the Academy games because there's usually not a lot of points. But the other thing that's kind of big in these trends is the underdog, especially when you're getting a touchdown. And there are some 7.5s out there. I was dreadfully wrong. I had the over for my win total for Army. Their defense has been atrocious this year, and the offense has struggled a bit. They've had a ton of injuries. It's not how I envisioned it, and the best they can do now is push the number. But I think that whenever you're getting a touchdown in a game where both teams essentially know each other and have an extra week to prepare, I'm going to take it every time. And then, as I said, there are some 7.5s floating out there. Army's defense can get better. They know what's coming from Air Force. Army's offense can maybe find some success in this game. But, I mean, anytime you're getting a touchdown with essentially the Spider-Man meme playing each other, I'm going to do so. So I think Army in this extra game, you know that there's not going to be much of a crowd advantage. It's going to be pretty much halfway down the middle. Give me Army plus 7.5 here. I think that they make this thing interesting. The underdog, we saw it with Navy against Air Force. Navy was a bigger underdog, and they covered that number too because everybody just knows each other here. So give me the underdog plus the points here.
Yeah, and it's just kind of an old, correlation, I guess you could say, is when you have these games that are low scoring, that are grinded out kind of games, it's correlated with that dog and the under. So looking towards getting that 7, shop around, get that 7.5. Army taking on Air Force. Matt, let people know what you have going on. Tell them about the show you got going tomorrow morning and what they'll find over at your page, sm.buzz/MJ.
Yeah, right now I got my props up for the Eagles and Texans game. There are 2 others that I didn't give out on the show, so you can find that up there as well. The college football plays will start going up tonight. Most of them will go up tomorrow. We're doing really well. 3 straight years of profitability in college football. And then, of course, the NFL props will go up on Sunday. So plenty of that. And by the way, college basketball on Monday, over 120 games. So certainly you'll want to check that out on my page at sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, and when these games are just starting off, man, you can find some value for sure. I do not envy the odds makers at all on this coming Monday. You're going to have football going on. Now you're going to add college basketball in, and oh yeah, everybody's hammering action as well. If you want action in all those sports, check it out with Matt Joseph's sm.buzz/MJ. That's the way to find it there, and you can get his best bets available. Back to that Thursday night football real quick before we bring in Eric Pauly. Great follow on Twitter is Ralph Michaels, our guy, the stat daddy, the man with the pen, whatever you want to call him. You know he's got the database, the human database. Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV. He just tweeted this out earlier today, and it's that double-digit favorites on Thursday night football. You would think it's kind of an anomaly. Hasn't happened much, right? Well, it's happened 27 times. 27 times we've had a Thursday night football game with a double-digit favorite. The favorites in that game against the spread, sorry to say this to you, Robert, our producer behind the scenes, a Houston Texans fan, favorites 21-6 against the spread. That's 77.8%. I was looking at the data that Ralph put out there. Of those 6 teams that hadn't covered, 5 of them were divisional opponents. The one other was a conference opponent in a Washington and Minnesota game. So these double-digit favorites out of conference, out of division, it's been a profitable endeavor. So just sharing that little actionable info. Do with it what you will. Double-digit favorites on Thursday night football, covering at about a 78% clip. I'm no mathematician, but that's pretty damn good. Let's bring in Eric Pauly, see what he thinks about it. EP, man, last week we went 1-1 on our free plays you gave out here. The one we lost by the GD hook, man. Detroit we had right there for the taking, and then that hook giveth, the hook taketh away. You have anything that you're eyeing in Thursday night football tonight, or you're just passing, getting ready to go for a loaded weekend?
Yeah, I'm just passing and getting ready to go for a loaded weekend. I know on the show we talked about the Lions plus 3.5 last week, but I did not pull trigger on that wager until I saw a 4 at FanDuel. So I actually was able to push that bet last week, which was nice.
Well
because
done.
it would have been ugly.
Well done. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good little teaching point there as well. You know, sometimes you want to beat that closing line, but a lot of the time, if you're going against what the way that you're looking is going to be against what this betting public is going to be doing, or even what the sharp markets are doing, both of them lose at a decent clip. So waiting to get the best of that number ends up with a push, not destroying the bankroll, because I don't know, EP may have just said, I'm not coming on this week if he lost by the hook on the line. So the push allowed us to bring EP back here, man. And I'm happy about it, brother.
Yeah,
So
and what got me there too is I was looking at some of the sharper books, Circa, Pinnacle, and they were all hanging the 3.5, but I saw FanDuel hanging the 4, and I already liked that side, so I saw that simply right there as like, I'm getting this 4 when the sharper books have the 3.5. I'm taking it. Unfortunately, was not a win, but certainly, fortunately, was not a loss. So that was kind of my thought process in taking that 4 on Saturday, actually, before the slate kicked off.
Yeah, and just a terrific point there, too. Use the wagertalk.com live odds screen. You can head there and you can see the difference between some of these books. And what EP's saying right there is he's looking at some of these sharper books like a South Point or a Circa, who's taking big time bets from really respected bettors. These public books where, you or listeners or we could potentially be playing on here, they're able to just see the difference in some of these public book numbers. A half point making a huge difference there. So, EP, let's talk some of these NFL plays that you got for them. You got a 2-pack again for the folks. So let's start with the dog, because I always like my barking dogs, and this is a play I've locked in already. So I'm looking forward to hearing your analysis in this Washington and Vikings game. What's the case you got to make for the Commanders in this one?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's looking like that 3.5 that was around all morning is mostly gone throughout realistically everywhere. It's looking like a 3 is sitting in the game now. So definitely will keep your eye on that market to see if that half point comes up at any point before Sunday kickoff, because definitely, again, need to get that 3.5 value with Washington. But I'm eyeing the Commanders in this game for a number of reasons. For starters, like on a surface level, you have Kirk Cousins returning to Washington. Of course, he started his career there, had a bunch of successful years with the Commanders, successful in the sense that he had some individual statistic success while the team was incapable of making the playoffs, but whatever. Kirk Cousins normally on Sundays, at a 1 o'clock in the middle of the slate where he's not on prime time and nobody's really paying attention to him, is when he has his best outings. But the Minnesota Vikings have been relying so much on the run this season, and the Washington Commanders are actually second in the NFL right now in total defensive DVOA against the run. So they've been doing a great job plugging the line and not allowing other running backs to run rampant on their team. So I think that's going to kind of make the Vikings a little bit one-dimensional. And while, of course, Minnesota is 6-1 this season, they're definitely overrated. They had their game last week against the Arizona Cardinals. They were literally handing the football game to the Cardinals and saying, here, take it, win the game. The Cardinals refused because they have their issues of their own, and Minnesota ended up not only winning but covering the spread. And while Washington, I'm not making the case that they're, a good team. They're still 25th in DVOA. I still have them in the 23rd spot in my own power ranking. So as a fan, even, you got to be realistic with what you're doing here. But we got lucky against the Colts last week. If Michael Pittman Jr. did not drop a pass at that last drive from Ellinger, Washington would have lost that game by 2, because that field goal they would have been in field goal range. But I think that this matchup is kind of set up where the Commanders are going to be able to put a ton of pressure on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a kind of passer that if he has pressure, he's going to be prone to making some mistakes with the football. The Vikings are not going to be able to really dominate the ground game whatsoever. And of course, while Taylor Heinicke, we know his limitations, we know what he's good at. He did a great job in the last 2 games, kind of just commanding the offense, finding the checkdowns in the middle of the field in very short routes and not really forcing deep, except for that last play where Terry McLaurin bailed him out. But regardless, I just think that 3.5 points in this spot is way too many. And even though you have the storylines of via Kirk going back to Washington and being on the 1 p.m. slate, I think that actually ends up being more of a challenge for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So at 3.5 points is too many. I'm going with the Commanders plus the 3.5. I'd still play +3 if that's all that's available, but I will wait to see maybe if it's another 3.5 rears its head back up and take that right away.
Yeah, and honestly, with what we've seen with this Washington team since they made the switch due to injury to Taylor Heinicke, they just seem a lot more energized. They do not look like they did at the beginning of the year where they're just kind of going through the motions. So this is one that I locked in on openers. I think Washington, is worth even a money line sprinkle a little bit, checking out that. I think they could potentially win the game outright. Even when you look at advanced metrics, the Vikings are winning and you look at their record, but there's still a bit to be left to be desired with that Vikings side. So I'm co-signing this one with my man Eric Pauly. You can check out his best bets at sm.buzz/EP. So you gave him a dog. Now let's talk a favorite with a similar spread. It's the Chargers taking on the Falcons. Chargers coming off of the bye. Falcons off one of, I think, maybe the most entertaining games of the year. And it was against the Panthers, like the stinker game that all of us were like, get this off my red zone, ends up being electric. PJ Walker and Marcus Mariota just putting on a clinic of how to do an OT game. DJ Moore taking his helmet off, adding the excitement. But how are you breaking this one down? Chargers taking off the Falcons. Chargers, speaking of leaving a little bit to be desired, they kind of have all season long, Eric.
Yeah, so these are teams that are kind of completely polar opposites. The Atlanta Falcons had negative expectations coming into this year, and they far surpassed what most people thought about this team already so far through 8 weeks. On the other hand, the Chargers were kind of touted this juggernaut, this really strong team. They're 4-3, and they have a plethora of problems from all the way to coaching staff, to injuries, to scheme fit. They just have not kind of found their footing. But I think this is a great bounce back spot for the Chargers. So this line is sitting at 3, and it's been 3 since opener. It has not moved at all in either direction. Maybe for a moment it went to 3 and 2.5, but it's been sitting consistently at 3. And I'm not sure if this is kind of a game that's where you're looking at where it's like, it's too obvious to bet the Chargers. You have to go with the Falcons. I think that when you break down some of the metrics like DVOA, I mean, LAC's at 16, Atlanta's only at 20. So there's not really a huge discrepancy in DVOA between these two football teams. But why I like the Chargers in this matchup is Marcus Mariota is not going to be able to beat them with his arm. The Falcons are going to try to pound the rock and run the football. I mean, Brandon Staley has had an extra week to prepare for a run-first team. And while their run defense is still not good, it has improved throughout the course of the season. And if you are incapable of game planning for a team that's going to throw the ball maybe 20 times and pound the ball every other possession with an extra bye week, that is honestly coaching malpractice, and is another reason for maybe look at Staley, who has been touted by like PFF as one of the best coaches of last year, who if you just put on the film, he's absolutely, on the bottom end of that coaching list. He's really not great. Mm-hmm. So even though Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both are banged up and it's unsure if either of the two will suit up on this game Sunday, if you just looked at that Panthers tape against the Falcons, despite how good PJ Walker was in the clutch in that amazing game he ended up putting on, there were so many times where there were wide receivers just running wide open against the Falcons secondary, and he was unable to connect with them. And now you have Justin Herbert throwing the football, being able to, make some of these throws, even if his wide receiver talent isn't that great around him. The Falcons don't really pressure the quarterback, so Herbert should have some time. Of course, the Chargers, like I said, their run defense is bad. Their pass defense has been middle of the pack. But this is a team, again, that with the additional time to prepare for this game, there's no way they come into Atlanta and take it lightly. And I don't think there's a chance they lose this football game. I think 3 is a modest number. And I think that, of course, with the field goal, the most common end total in an NFL game. But I think that the Chargers certainly have what it takes to cover the 3 in this matchup. And if they do not, Brandon Staley better be on that hot seat.
Yeah, you're not kidding, man, because coming out of the bye, you have extra time to prepare. You have a rest major advantage, not just because coming off of the bye, you're coming up against a team who really put their pedal to the metal in a game against a division opponent. So definitely a look that it might end up on my card too. Chargers taking on the Falcons, laying the 3 with our man EP. If they head on over your page, Eric, over at sm.buzz/EP, what kind of stuff will they find? Do you have anything locked and loaded for this weekend, or maybe some action they can ride with tonight?
Yeah, so I have nothing for tonight, but I'm finalizing my card, so that will be up. At least 1 or 2 players will be up by the end of the day today, and then that card will be finalized Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning. As always, I put all of my picks for that NFL week in one package, all access, so you can get everything in one shot. And something to mention that I overlooked in the Vikings Commanders game is the Justin Jefferson receiving yard prop has not been posted yet, or at least I have not seen it yet. Ooh. But if that is under 90, that is an automatic make on my card. There's no way the Washington Commanders secondary can stay with Justin Jefferson for a whole 60 minutes. I'm waiting for that prop to drop. And once that does, depending on the number, of course, but if it's even slightly below 90, that is a play for me, certainly.
How about that? Eric Pauly coming on here and even throwing a prop your way for free right here on Sports Memo Today. That's why you never want to miss a show. Eric, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on. You can always, of course, check out Eric as well with Moneyline Matt on Bettor's Almanac, a terrific podcast. I listen weekly. I think you guys are doing a great job with that. People can tune in. They can get free bets even that you guys are giving out. Wow, cash in the plays you guys are giving out too. So appreciate Eric Pauly coming on. That's going to do it for us here. Amazing pace of play on a Thursday edition of Sports Memo Today. For Eric Pauly, for Matt Josephs, I'm Dan Alexander. Hope you enjoy the games this evening. Hopefully my teams fare a bit better. Until then, we'll see you next Tuesday here on Sports